Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar Wednesday. My name is Martin Loffers. I'm the trend watcher of Supply Chain Media. You might also know me as editor-in-chief of Supply Chain Magazine in the Netherlands and Supply Chain Movement, our European quarterly. I will be the moderator of this great webinar, and I'm very proud to say we have 5 great speakers, startups, who are specialized in blockchain. And we heard a lot about blockchain. And we have in-depth discussion about it, great pitches, and we even have an interactive session after 5 o'clock. So I think we have a great setup. We have 300 attendees, so a lot of people are interested. That's a good point. So welcome, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. All right. Now, yes. So who am I? I'm Martin Loffers. Upper left, you see myself. And with me, I have, as I said, 5 experts. So Hjalmar van Schaaf from Cargo Ledger. Hjalmar, welcome. All right, welcome. Peter Kern, CEO of Cargo X.
Hello,
Peter.
good to be here.
Gunther Walden from Circular Tree.
Yes, hi everybody.
Colleen Laurent, marketing manager of Connecting Foods. Hi, Colleen.
Hello everyone.
And last but not least, Nathan Williams of MindSpider.
Hello everyone, pleasure to be here.
So welcome to you as experts. Welcome everybody, in the audience. So this will be recorded. Apart from the experts, you're all on mute, but you have the opportunity to ask questions. So on the right-hand side, you see a small cloud with a question mark in it, and if you click on it, you see the option to ask questions. Feel free to ask questions also during the webinar, and if they are in line of the topic we're discussing at that moment, I will make sure to ask these questions to the experts. So it should be interactive. At the end of this session, we do have a Q&A, so there's also an option to answer the questions not being answered before. And but if you want to ask these questions directly to one of these experts, you have the opportunity after 5 o'clock, between 5 o'clock and 5:30. You can go into a lounge, and you'll be able to sit at a table of one of these experts, including myself. And you can talk to these experts individually. So you have kind of a Zoom meeting afterwards. All right. So blockchain. Now, it has been said the great promise for supply chain, and we have written about it already since 2018. And first, what is blockchain? And we talk a lot about Bitcoins. We probably won't talk about Bitcoins that much. But basically, Bitcoins is connecting 2 flows. So in the business world, you have 3 flows: the flow of goods, the information flow, and the financial flow. And basically, Bitcoin is about the connecting financial flow and information flow. But what we see in blockchain, there's an ability to connect all the 3 flows. So even the goods, the information flow, and the financial flow. And we will use a distributed ledger, so not a central database, but a distributed database ledger to use that and to apply it. And that's the whole point of blockchain. And these experts will know way more about it than I do. Well, you see it on the left-hand side, this is the promise of blockchain. So you can, connect these 3 flows all together, and even you can create smart contracts that if a product has been going into the hands of someone else, payments has become instantly after checking in the blockchain. So that's in a nutshell the blockchain. And as you can see on the left-hand side, you have someone with a mobile phone who can track transactions as part of the blockchain and smart contracts. Okay, so that's a bit of theory about the blockchain. Already in 2019, Gartner stated that they warned us for a blockchain fatigue, and we have to remind you this is May 2019, way before COVID-19. We couldn't have predicted that. And Gartner said 90% of the supply chain initiatives based on the much discussed technology, blockchain, will show signs of blockchain fatigue by 2023. I don't know if Gartner would still state the same prediction based on COVID-19 and the application and the development of blockchain. We shall see, but you can comment on that. So one of you, Peter, what do you think? Is there already blockchain fatigue? What do you see, Peter?
Well, we need to differentiate blockchain as such, right? Is not ripe to handle any bottleneck or any issue in the supply chain, right? You have other systems that can do that. Blockchain can add value for specific use cases. This is how I see it, and this is also happening right now in the market.
All right. Yes, I agree. And I will. You have later also the opportunity to comment the others. Next. Blockchain. Okay, what have we seen in the market right now? Supply Chain Media has made an analysis of all kinds of startups in Europe. So since 2018, we have been creating this maturity matrix of supply chain startups. It's quite detailed, but from left to right, all the supply chain process you can imagine, from supplier managers up to the right to the last mile delivery. There are all kinds of startups, and we have defined 10 categories based on product level, I would say, SKUs, square meters, item pallets, parcels, that kind of stuff. And in the middle, you see blockchain. So as of last year, we created a part segment about startups and scale up in the field of blockchain, especially for supply chain. So not for finance, whatever, specifically about blockchain. You see some startups here, Cargo Ledger, Cargo X. But, as we see some experts, there will be more, the upcoming matrix. And some people said to me, blockchain is that. And I said, okay, but if you take this column of blockchain supply chain startups, in the last 2 years, these startups have raised more than 100 million euros. 100 million euros. And, the finance people who have, invested this kind of money, they are not stupid. So there is a promise, and if these startups are already funded with over 100 million euros, I think there is something going to be happening. And that's what we're going to discuss. And another thing, what we have done last year in March, we did a survey about supply chain and the investments. So we did a survey among 106 manufacturing companies and retailers, and that was in June, just after the first peak of COVID-19 hitting Europe and creating ups and downs on demands and the supply. And basically what you see, end-to-end supply chain visibility is one of the key areas where companies are going to invest. So I was wondering, Hjalmar, do you see that's also a raise in demand for this kind of tools?
In itself, end-to-end visibility is, as you mentioned, is something supply chain managers want. More control, more insight. That is what we offer. So there is a demand and there is a match. And it's coming more and more, definitely.
Okay, good to hear. So everybody in the audience, feel free to ask questions. I will be monitoring all the questions. But now we're going to talk about what are the applications, what are the options. So now I have to check. Yep. So I would ask all these 5 experts. They will have between 2 to 3, maybe 4 minutes tops to do a short pitch about their application. And I would ask in the alphabetical order to pitch. So Hjalmar, Cargo Ledger. So tell me.
Thanks for having me, Martijn. I'm Hjalmar van der Schaaf, CEO, founder of Cargo Ledger, and we are working on that data-driven supply chains and logistics, with blockchain. We started this because paper is still one of the main challenges in the nowadays supply chain and logistics. Paper adds complexity. Paper gets lost. It is even a risk in nowadays supply chain and logistics, but it also provides trust. But that trust can be organized in a different manner, and that is what we do with blockchain. And with blockchain, sharing of data becomes easier, changes become transparent, and deleting data is impossible. And also, stakeholder management and compliance become easier. And what we do is we improve control, visibility, flexibility, and efficiency in the execution of the supply chain. So basically, from between order and the invoice, we provide more visibility, more efficiency, more flexibility. And we know with what we do that we save our customers, which are shippers, freight forwarders, and carriers, up to 58 cents on every euro they spend on order handling and administration. And that is not including failure cost.
Okay, then we will talk about the hurdles to implement it and all the other stuff.
Yeah. So if you want to know what CargoLogic can do for your supply chain, I would invite you to come talk to me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Jan, that's the first one. Good pitch. Thanks a lot. Next, Peter Kern. So kick it off about CargoX.
CargoX is using blockchain technology to transfer title of documents as well as track each and every document through the chain, going back to the source of the document, verifying whether the document is authentic. Next. CargoX is one of the 6 approved electronic bill of lading solution providers by the international group of the P&I clubs. So we transfer title, verifiable and immutable electronic signatures using blockchain technology, and we use public blockchain on Ethereum to verify and run consensus through the smart contract. We started off focusing specifically on the bill of lading, but then we moved to other documents. And right now we have over 50 documents, and each document has the ability to be audited. We use the undisputable and immutable electronic signatures. It's a very simple platform, SaaS-based. Everybody can become a user very fast and efficiently. We support the escrow and letter of credit process, the certificates of origin. It's very uninvasive towards any existing workflow with very simple rule book. It is secure, hack resistant, censorship resistant. So we basically encrypt every document, and every transaction can be verified publicly. We believe that's a very important part when we talk about documents of value or digital asset, right? That it is no single authority that can intervene with transferring the ownership or the title over a digital asset. That's why we use the public network. Well, of course, everything remains very private, GDPR compliant. No private information is stored on the blockchain, so it's a very private and safe environment. But only the information that has to be verifiable is then verifiable. Right. We support, structured and unstructured documents, and very important part is integratable, right? So the whole platform is supported by the APIs. That's also the future of building the modular digital solutions which support the strategy and differentiation of the organizations. Next. Here I wanted to do a little bit of visual presentation of how the workflow can look like from the sales contract, and then purchase order, the cargo invoice. Everything can go through the platform. Everything is recorded on the blockchain for complete trust and fraud prevention. And then, of course, the carriers would be issuing the bill of lading, adding all their supporting documents like insurance documents, freight invoice, send it over the platform to the shipper. They would add their documents like certificates of origin, cargo invoice, packing list. They could submit that to the bank for open account commitment, payment commitment, or with letter of credit, title the document to the bank as collateral. It goes to the consignee, and then the cargo is being released by the release agent, and the documents are being accomplished. Again, audit proven, everything is recorded, so you can have the full audit of each document through the chain for the complete visibility, which we believe is adding value. And our over 450 account would be a statement of that it's really adding value versus the normal courier service, which costs over $100 to complete the chain overseas, right? That would be. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Peter, for this pitch. I got a question. Can we have the presentation slides? Yes, you will be able to download the PDF of the whole slide deck afterwards. So don't worry. So you can listen and ask your questions. All right. Thank you, Peter, for your pitch. Next, Günther, please go ahead.
Yes, hello everybody. Our solution Carbon Block is helping companies to really become part of the solution against climate change. Now, if you wanna address this topic, next slide, please. Then one of the things you're looking today is a company carbon footprint. You see all these announcements about companies becoming carbon neutral in 2025, 2030, 35, or even 2050. The problem is the company carbon footprint is only a small part of the overall product carbon footprint. So typically, if you buy a product and this has a certain amount of carbon footprint, on average, only 20% comes from the last company which announced these carbon neutral things. 80% of the carbon footprint comes through your supply chain. And today, there is not a system in place to really provide reliable data about the carbon footprint of the supply chain. This is exactly what we are doing with Carbon Block. Next, please. With Carbon Block, in the first step, we measure and provide transparency about the carbon footprint of the supply chain. And in the next step, we will then provide means to support our customers how they can reduce the carbon footprint by making targets, by comparing suppliers, and so on. Now, how does this work? We've done a pilot project, and this is what I'm going to run you through. So in the first step, we started with BASF. They are providing granulate. This granulate has a certain product carbon footprint. On top of the carbon footprint of the granulate, you add the transportation carbon footprint, and then Motherson reads that information. They put their own carbon footprint for the product to it, and then they write the carbon footprint of one bumper into the blockchain system. What's Carbon Block here? Then you add the transportation, and then finally this bumper ends up at Porsche, and then they have the real carbon footprint of this bumper exactly at their location. And if you do this with all the parts, then at the end of the day, you have a true carbon footprint of your product. This solution we were doing last year together with Startup Autobahn, and we're very proud that we won the Innovation Award from Startup Autobahn with this. Next, please. And I'm also very excited to be able to tell you that we've just started another project in the fast-moving consumer goods industry. So you see, this approach is applicable to all sorts of industries and even services. And if you're interested, just come and join me later on and we can have a detailed chat about it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I was wondering, why... Günther, why do you need blockchain for all this? Couldn't you do this in a central database, or do you really need blockchain for this?
Of course, you could theoretically, but you are handling very sensitive data, and companies are very reluctant to share data in their supply chain to begin with. And there, the blockchain solution provides some additional security. You have better interface possibilities. You have the ownership of your data. So there are a number of reasons which make blockchain a very good choice for this application.
But you don't need smart contracts in this kind of environment.
Actually, we have smart contracts as well, especially when it comes to auditing, for example. Who is able to audit? Who has those rights? And these things are written down in smart contracts to leave no room for wrong interpretation.
But in that sense, smart contract is not like ownership contracts. That is also another way of using smart contracts.
Well, the ownership is the data. The carbon footprint is the ownership. That's what we treat as a sensitive data, and there the companies want to maintain ownership.
Okay. Thanks a lot. And next, the only women in the expert team. So, Colleen, hit it.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
So I see there is 136 attendees in the room, and I really think that some of you work in the agri-food industry, so it's your moment. It's exactly you that I'm talking to. Connecting Food, well, of course, is a blockchain platform. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today. And what we do, what our platform does, is that we want to make the agri-food industry more transparent. And to do so, we rely on two main features of our platform that are, firstly, the traceability of the food products, right from the farms, from the feed suppliers to the retailers in real time. And the second one is the digital audit of the product's quality criteria. And both of these are done in real time by our platform that is based on blockchain. And once we are able to do this, then we are able to print a QR code on the product's back in order for the consumer to scan it and discover the full journey of the product that he or she has in her hands. So next slide, please. The very important thing to understand about Connecting Food is that we are not a consumer app. Actually, the information that we are able to showcase to the consumer through the QR code is just the very tip of the iceberg. And sometimes it can even be mistaken as brand storytelling. But what we really do and where we add the value and where blockchain is really useful is for everything that is underneath the water in this scheme, and that is to prove that the factories, the suppliers, the farmers, the producers are really producing what they're saying they're producing and are really delivering every day for every batch of production what they are paid for. And this is very sensitive information, just like Gunther was talking about, that that need to be shared in a highly secured manner, yet a shared one, because the reason why so many food scandals are still happening today is because we don't have that much transparency from the whole food chain, and this is why Connecting Food exists. So last slide, please. Well, next one. Our platform works as a software as a service, and we work with upstream actors, with manufacturers, and also with brands and retailers. So we really cover the full food chains, and our clients pay us an annual subscription to be part of the hub, to use the platform, in order for us to plug to their existing system that are the data sources for us, to aggregate all this together, to link the batches together, and to provide in one platform an overview of the whole supply chain. So, Martin, when you were talking about end-to-end visibility of the supply chain, it's exactly where we stand. And we also have that additional break of bringing this transparency all the way to the consumer in the very end of the food supply chain. So next slide, please. Yeah, this is a picture of our team. We are based in Paris, in France, and my name is Colleen. So I'll be with you in the sessions after if some of you want to talk about the blockchain used in the food industry.
All right, Colleen, thank you for this speech. From my side, okay, this is targeted for the food supply chain, but I see a lot of companies who are in smaller sense might be connected to the food chain. So that's something, and also the audience, if they're not in the food chain, they can spread the word around to others who do work in the food chain. I was running. How long would it take that also consumers get insights about where all the products are coming from?
What do you mean, how long would it take? Because we currently have some clients that are having products tracked by our platform in store at the moment in France, in Italy, in Germany.
But I mean, can a consumer track down also the origin of
Yes,
parts?
absolutely. Actually, if you go on a website under the consumer section, you can discover there are close to 10 products that already have the connecting food QR code on them, and they can be scanned to discover everything about them.
And I was also looking at your website and your logo. I saw a French flag. Is there also outside France connecting food?
Absolutely. Actually, I think you took the logo from the LinkedIn page. We have two LinkedIn pages, one international and one specific to the French market. But we are an international company. Actually, one of our co-founders is Italian. The other one is from the UK. We have people from all over the world in our team. So yes, definitely. We have clients in the UK, in the US. We are all over.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Colleen. We'll get back to you later. So last but not least, Nathan Williams, MindSpider.
Really nice to be here, especially among such a prestigious group of colleagues. So my company is MindSpider, and we are focused on traceability in the mining and metals industry. Next slide, please. So what you'll see in common from everyone that's doing supply chain is we're trying to connect data from different players, different actors all along the supply chain in order to get a fuller picture of where things are coming from. And there's sort of a Venn diagram overlap between different companies and our approaches and what we're trying to do. And for MindSpider, our circle of the diagram is focused on raw materials. Specifically, we got our start around human rights and identifying materials that are essentially not part of illicit activities. And so what we did, we got started in 2017, and we built our own blockchain protocol to manage this, because what we saw was a need for decentralization, a need for no trusted party at the center of the ability to trade this type of information. So what we built is a way for companies to create digital certificates that are permissioned so that people, only the data owner can read them, but without a central gatekeeper. So we don't have a central database with passwords that give access to these digital certificates. Rather, companies create their digital certificates and they select data that can be public, transparent along the same supply chain, or private just for them, unchangeable because it's on the blockchain, but gives a fuller picture of where their materials are coming from and under what conditions they've been produced. Next slide, please. So our first big projects have been done in the tin industry. So we've worked with Minsur, who's based in Peru. We worked with Luna Smelter that's based in Rwanda. And what we were looking at, because tin is a conflict material, it's used in a lot of electronics, also in the automotive industry, and in photovoltaic cells, all over the place. And it can often fund armed groups, civil war, and there's a lot of problems with it. So what we were looking at is how we can track that end to end. And more recently, we've built upon our learnings from our first pilot projects and said, okay, how can we facilitate adoption by giving companies a product that tracks data in the tin industry, but that adds value when you sell it to one company at a time. And so if you go to the next slide, you see what we're working on right now, funding from the European Commission and the European Institute of Innovation Technology, is a product that we call OreSource. So essentially a QR code. It goes on ingots of tin at the smelter level, and when companies scan it and they receive their metal, they have access to all the data they need to import legally into Europe to show that it's clean, that it's been sourced legally, that they have checks on it to protect against supply chain problems such as forced labor, human rights abuses, and so on. And so this is our first major product. We're also working right now on mine smelter, mostly in the B2B space, as well as everyone is, of course, interested in things such as carbon emissions and other data in other metals as well. I'm happy to answer any questions, and that's a brief intro to what we're up to.
Okay. Nathan, thank you for this. I do know that also Philips is interested to track down scarce material from the total life cycle, possibly using blockchain. So are you also familiar with Philips and some others who are in that field who want to own scarce material from mining it to the end of the life cycle?
This is one of the really interesting developments that has happened in the past few years, is especially since COVID hit, is that companies are much more concerned about continued access to rare earth metals, to raw materials, that their supply chains don't have a single point of failure. For example, if they're getting all their rare earths through China, then if there's a disruption in China for whatever reason, then their supply chain's at risk. And so the idea of diversifying and knowing how, maybe 5 steps before deep into the supply chain, that you're not accidentally monosourcing, I think is going to be very big in this. And we've also seen countries take an interest, such as, Europe, of course, but also the UK, in having continued access to rare earth materials. And a lot of that might have to come from second.
Yeah, you're already mentioning Europe and UK as separate entities since this year. So that's one thing.
It's fairly recent, but it's kind of important.
Another thing is in the mining industry, you have banned mines, so blacklisted mines. So some companies like Philips and some others like Fairphone, creating open source mobile phones, they go into those countries to check the environment of working and improve it. And is that also something you could connect to, but you related to working environment and getting certificates? So in that sense, maybe banned countries, banned mines or blacklisted mines can be opened up and can create, an economy on the right circumstances?
It's a really complex field, and the answer is sort of. I prefer, and in this industry, it's often preferable to take an approach of incident management as opposed to blacklisting, just because you're trying to prevent certain bad practices. You don't want child labor, you don't want forced labor, you don't want illegal taxes. If you blacklist areas, you can end up hurting the very people you're trying to help. And so that's why it makes it very complicated. But the short answer is yes, the more data you have and the better granularity you have about where your materials are coming from and what risks you're trying to prevent against, the more you can stop these problems and without hurting the average family that's just trying to make a living.
Well, thank you for this. Colleen, I was wondering, listening to this case of Mine Spider, do you also see some similarities in your food chain, but working environments in that area, in that sense, Colleen?
Yes, of course. The transparency problem on supply chain is, of course, not specific to food, but at Connecting Food, we have a strong focus on this specific industry, and because also the product that we bring to the market, our blockchain platform, it's specifically designed for the agri-food industry, and so it's always very insightful to look at other supply chains and other problematics, but our platform is very, very specific for the agriculture. So the most common thing would be maybe the cotton and the things that start in the field, because even in the composition of our team, most of our teammates come from, not the developers, but all the teammates that work with the clients, they come from agricultural background, agricultural studies. And so our knowledge is really to link blockchain to the field and the processing of the food, and rather not just blockchain to any kind of supply chain.
No, but I can imagine that even in food, working conditions, in Africa and other countries and areas might be, of suspect, and that could also be addressed in your food supply chain.
Absolutely. Our point of view on that kind of matter is that if something can be measured, then our platform can track and audit it.
Okay. All right, very good. I got some questions. I will get into this because, and then how blockchain can help to improve beauty and fashion industry. And another question: does blockchain have a feasible use in fashion, with often used rapidly changing supply chain at lower tiers? Great questions. I will ask the audience the question. But first, supply chain media has developed a trend compass since 2019, and this is the 2020 version. And I explain, first we have looked at the world. What are the mega trends? We see globalization since the 1990s. We see digitalization since 2010. Sustainability has hit as a mega trend. A mega trend is something nobody can ignore anymore. And with Greta Thunberg in 2019, nobody could around her. So sustainability is a mega trend for everybody. And as of this year, or last year, I would say, 2020, pandemics is a mega trend. And it all, in the end, affects the customer needs. So that's why this has been built up. And the next phase, you have the innovation drivers. You have the macro trends, the innovation drivers. And in the light blue, you see transparency and visibility. As you can see, transparency and visibility is all around. So in every direction, going into the customer need, consumer and customer needs in B2B and B2C, you see transparency and visibility is a dominant innovation driver. In the middle blue, you see safety, privacy, and counterfeit in the northern part. But that is conflicting with convenience, and convenience is also conflicting with experience. But they are all valid innovation drivers. So convenience is ordering your goods by Amazon, delivered at home. Especially in lockdown, you see a huge boom in e-commerce. But convenience is conflicting with experience. If you want to go into a store, be surprised, that's experience. So experience and convenience, they do not go hand in hand. And finally, in a darker blue one, you see innovation driver. Sustainability and social responsibility is one. Cost, still innovation driver. And personalization. And you see cost and personalization and also sustainability, they do not go hand in hand automatically. And that's what we have found out. And this is based on research we have done among hundreds of supply chain professionals in the last 2 years. And finally, and then you hit it, what is your company's strategy? And now I get to the questions about fashion and beauty. So on the light blue side, you see operational excellence. So if you are Walmart or Amazon, your key company strategy is operational excellence. And that doesn't mean if you have other strategies like product leadership, like Apple, you have to ignore operational excellence, but you have to choose one as the major focus point. Either you are Cisco, customer intimacy, Apple, product leadership, or Walmart. You can't be all three of them. And if you're very well enabled and if you're very well mature, like Amazon, they can do some sort of product leadership, creating their own tech toys. So basically, you need one strategy to come up with the customer needs to fulfill. So that's about. We have also a business strategy compass, and in this business strategy compass, we connect the company strategy, operational excellence, product leadership, and customer intimacy to 6 supply chain types. And you know it, make to stock to make to order, and all in between. Those are 6 supply chain types, depending on in which industry you are. And now the good part, we have come up with applications, and you see, and I won't go into that in depth, but we'll also cover blockchain. So we have found out what are innovative applications working around the world in all kinds of industries in supply chain, connecting to specific innovation drivers, why you're doing it. So like IoT-based replenishment, light blue, is transparency and visibility. So we have tracked down applications that have showed their ROI, and that has been working. And you can find it, you can download it, but basically, if you are in a certain area and you can connect your company environment to these kind of applications, machine learning, 3D printing for spare parts, and as such, you will see where it makes sense to look for. So if you are a Walmart or a low-cost retailer, you are in operational excellence, you have to look at process innovation. When you are a product leader like Apple, you look at product innovation. And when you are a Cisco, you look at service innovation because you have customer intimacy as a strategy. So that's my pitch about this trend compass. And now we get to blockchain. And then we get to the questions, and I will ask the experts. What you see here, we have two applications of blockchain already live. On the left-hand side, you see the custom clearance blockchain. Cargo Ledger has mentioned it. And basically, that is process innovation. So for the custom clearance of all those documents, so for the import of mangoes from Africa to Rotterdam, you need to clear 200 documents. And normally it would take days to manage these. And with the blockchain, they've managed it to do it in 15 minutes. So that's a blockchain for custom clearance. That's on the left-hand side. That's operational excellence. That's process innovation. Another example I know from the Antwerp Harbor is that, T-Mining is a startup from Belgium, and they've created a blockchain, a closed blockchain, for distributing the password to enter a compound to pick up a container. So before that, you were a truck driver, and you got a mail with a password to enter a compound to pick up a container. But you can forward this password, and then unluckily some containers were opened, some stuff out of Colombia were picked out, or even the whole container was transferred. So that's the trick over there. Now they are using blockchain, a closed blockchain, not an open blockchain. So they know who has the password. Only one person can have the password, and only that person can enter the compound, and they do know who is entering the compound. So they make it quite clear that there is no chance that someone unknown taking some extra stuff out of Colombia, out of a container, or even the whole container out of a compound in the harbor of Antwerp. So by doing that, you can make it all watertight proof and tight. So that's on the process innovation. And on the right-hand side, you see William Grant and Sons. They are selling whiskey bottles for $16,000 each, and they're connecting blockchain IoT to a bottle, and they can track down who is owning and who has a certain individual item. So and then they use blockchain to first to know who's having a certain whiskey bottle, and to make sure that there is no counterfeiting, that there is no false whiskey bottles around in the world claiming their names. So I would like to check down, Hjalmar, I mentioned you. So in my opinion, you are on the left side in operational excellence. Agree?
For now, we definitely are. I mean, that's the data flows, or three flows in the supply chain and logistics: information flow, goods flow, and the money flow. And if you take that a step further, then you will have programmable money, and that will change how we do business. So, but for now, it's because moving towards a blockchain-enabled world is that takes quite a lot of steps, and we're on our way, but it will take some time.
Peter, from Cargo X, I was wondering, we have got a question how blockchain can help to improve beauty and fashion industry. On one hand, that could be operational, about logistics, about track and trace, and that kind of stuff. And maybe in a SaaS world that it would be doable, considering ROI. What do you think of applications of blockchain in beauty and fashion industry, Peter?
Yeah, well, blockchain as such can add to any basically industry or industry vertical, right? In terms of security, trust, and fraud prevention, right? Mm-hmm. So even with fashion industry, we know that there are some fake items going around. With blockchain, we can basically eliminate that, right? Same as you mentioned bottles of whiskey, right? So we have an undisputed proof of the source of that, and we can then trace the product from production to consumption, right? It's not only the fashion industry, COVID vaccine, right? We can trace it from production down to the consumer, basically to the last patient that has received a specific dose of that vaccine, right? So that's the power of the blockchain, because it can really create a very high level of trust and eliminate fraud, right?
Yeah, yeah, I do agree, but what I'm thinking, getting this question, what should be the innovation driver? What should be the trigger? So how blockchain can help to improve beauty and fashion industry? My question would be, are you talking about cheap fashion like Primark, or are you talking about high fashion? Very expensive fashion. In highly expensive fashion, you can imagine there will be an RFID chip connected to IoT, connected to a blockchain, and then you have the innovation driver of counterfeit. Whereas if you have Primark, maybe they want to track it down for consumer purposes to make it visible. What is the where it's coming from, etc. Or is it the cost? So don't you agree that you first have to go through the innovation drivers to answer this kind of question, Peter?
Well, definitely. I mean, you need to do your homework before, right? But I would not, limit it to the prime brands only. Of course, the immediate answer would suggest that. It's a very complex question in terms of production, in terms of environmental sustainability, how the fashion is producing, carbon footprint of the supply chain. We can move a nice portion of those data and information through some blockchain applications to eliminate fraud and really have a sustainable approach towards the supply chain. But as I said, it's a very complex question that you asked.
Gunther, if you look at this slide with the innovation drivers, where do you see your application of carbon block be positioned?
Well, I think from terms of innovation drivers, we are certainly about transparency and visibility. This is where we have the mega trend of sustainability, and the key is transparency and visibility. However, what you have to keep in mind is that in the B&B world, there are limits to transparency. For example, customer relationships are typically treated as being confidential, and companies are not willing to provide transparency about supplier and customer relationships. And so this is something where you need to deal with. Otherwise, your solution will not have an acceptance in the market. That's our experience.
Colleen, how do you look at this slide? I see a lot of questions coming in, and we will answer these. But Colleen, how do you relate to this innovation driver overview? Where do you see your food application, connecting food application, be resided?
Well, actually, it could really be at each and every level.
Okay.
Because if we start from the outside of the circle, well, the reason why connecting food exists is because food chains are globalized, and where blockchain is mostly useful is when the supply chain is complex, when there are a lot of actors exchanging raw materials, processed goods from country to country. So globalization, of course, then digitalization. Well, we need the actors to be digitalized, but our platform is also for them a way to insert to get more digital into their processes. Sustainability, of course, because our platform enables the actors to prove how sustainable they are and what it means for them to be sustainable. Are we talking about local? Are we talking about fair pay, about working conditions? And in times of pandemics, well, consumers need to be reassured about where the food come from, and need to be sure that the food is safe. So being able to track the product that you have in your hand and the specific batch of production that you have in your hand, of course, is an advantage. And then, well, transparency and visibility. We've been talking about it since the beginning of the webinar. Safety, privacy, counterfeit. Counterfeit is a very particular point, I would say, because we are very committed to not saying that blockchain can resolve everything in terms of food fraud, because the technology alone is not what will save the food industry from fraud. We have to apply another layer of technology if you really want blockchain to solve fraud. And this is why at Connecting Food we have developed something we call live audit. It's a specific module that will compare everything coming in and out of each actor, so that we can verify that each actor is not selling more than what he can produce, kind of calculations like that. But for me, it's important to underline that blockchain isn't the solution itself to counterfeit.
All right. I'm being bombarded with all kind of questions, so I'm listening, but I also have to track all those questions. If your questions are not answered, do stay on after 5 o'clock and sit down at a table of one of these experts, and you can ask this question directly. So I see a lot of questions. Let me check. I get a question. Maybe in general. What value can blockchain add to supply chain processes, supply chain planning processes, I mean? So maybe, Nathan, you are in the mining area, so this might be specific, but you showed me a whole supply chain. So do you have any comments on that? How can you use your environment for supply chain planning processes?
So here's the thing. What we're seeing from what everyone has said is that that question is analogous to how can the internet help supply chain processes. Blockchain is an infrastructure, it's a technology, but on top of it you build many, many different tools. You can build a carbon tracking tool, you can build an audit tool, you can build a QR code, make sure there's no fraud tool. And all of these different applications are part of this ecosystem, and it's why it's sort of hard to pin down each of us into one area of this innovation driver. I think that what we're going to see is that there are going to be some applications and use cases of blockchain in the supply chain field that are more easily profitable and more easily money saving than others. But some of them are going to be more important for what we value as a society. So carbon traceability, sustainability, chemical use, human rights, these are all areas that are going to be very important for creating the world of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Peter, I was wondering, you have a platform with a lot of flows and transactions and that kind of stuff. Could that also mean that your environment could help for supply chain planning along the supply chain from suppliers to the end phase?
Yeah, it's combination of different technologies, right? Even within our platform, right? We use blockchain to trace the records and documents. But on top of that, we are interoperable with other innovations. We just recently partnered with IoT company that is having tracking devices for temperature reading along the journey of the cargo, right? Then we are partnering with an IE company that is going to build some solutions within the platform using artificial intelligence. So it's many innovations that can stack up and then offer the value to the international trade and to the international supply chain. Part of that, of course, could be also the inventory planning. But I would not run everything through the blockchain as such, right? Because for inventory planning, you can have a legacy system, but then you build some blockchain applications on that are, really preventing any kind of counterfeiting, and you are rest assured from which suppliers are you supplying your cargo, right?
Yeah, I get a generic question, well, to everybody, all the experts, stating there are several examples of what blockchain could do and a litany of benefits. However, what tangible examples are there to demonstrate a blockchain application with clear net benefit over and above what's possible using other techniques? You mentioned IoT. Yeah, some things you can address with IoT, and some things you can handle with blockchain. I was wondering, Gunther, could you explain? So, what are the tangible benefits you couldn't do without this blockchain application, Gunther?
Yeah, well, I think if you look at all we're doing is at the end of the day, we're creating a digital twin. We're creating a digital twin of something which exists in the real world. And then we're transferring the data either through the supply chain or to an end user, or even from the end user then at the end of the day to a recycler. And then hopefully there will be some reuse of materials and things like this. And if you, for example, take the recycling part, it would be a great benefit to a recycler to know the material composition of what he's about to recycle, because then he can ensure that his recycled products are free of hazardous materials, for example. So this information to have would be great for him. But on the other side, if you go to the OEM or to other companies in the supply chain before, they typically do not want to disclose their material composition, their bill of materials. And there you could, for example, have smart contracts that only recyclers are allowed to look at those data. And this, in our opinion, is really a clear benefit.
So I get a question for you and also to the others. We have only 3 minutes left, and then we go into the lounge. Which player in the supply chain should start a blockchain project? Maybe we can ask you all this. So, Gunther, which player in the supply chain should start this initiative to what you're doing?
Well, from our side, it's clearly, if you mean at which level, we think it's the OEM. The OEM has the power, and he needs to drive this.
So that's Porsche in your case?
In our case, Porsche, absolutely.
Jalmar, who should be the initiator of a blockchain project in your area?
In our case, well, there are benefits for all. We investigated that, and from our perspective, it can be either the shipper, the freight forwarder, or the carrier. So that's with our solution. Each can start.
Because there is also a question from the audience. This could be massive for logistics service providers and carriers to innovate, to be more efficient. So they could start there also.
Yes.
Okay. Peter, who should be the initiator of a blockchain project in your opinion?
For us, it's either the BCO, the exporter, trade finance, the banks, and of course also the logistics providers. But the biggest monetary savings and simplification of the work process goes with the exporters and trade finance banks. Yeah.
So the banks should be on top of this, to kick it off.
Absolutely, they play a major role in e-presentation of the documents with escrow or LC payment processing. They play a big role, but of course, it's a very complex ecosystem of all the players in the international trade.
We had a lot of questions more, but we have to wrap up with only 1 minute to go. So quickly, Colleen, who should start the project in the food environment?
Well, actually, there's two ways of answering your question. The first one is who at the moment is kind of at the initiative of the blockchain projects in the food industry, and it's very clear that they are the retailers and the brands, and who should start really, in our opinion, at Connecting Food, well, the producers and the cooperative and the one more upstream in the chain, because if they wait for the last part of the chain to impose their own decisions, they will have absolutely no control over what type of solution is used and what type of data they have to input to the platform and stuff like that. And at Connecting Food, the reason we exist is because we want to reconnect the consumers with their food, and we want to reconnect the actors among the food chain. So we really hope that the more upstream actors will realize that the blockchain revolution is coming, and they have to get in the loop and to take action in order for them to stay on top of what's coming and not get something imposed to them by their clients.
Thank you. Nathan, you will be in the lounge, and there are more opportunities to connect. So, I have to say thank you for now for listening in. I want to thank you later, but next week we will have another webinar in our webinar Wednesday. We will talk about multi-echelon inventory management. We'll talk with Logility as an expert, and they have done a lot of cases in that area in fashion and CPG and other industries. So that's for next week. For now, I would like to thank you, Hjalmar, Peter Karen, Gunther Walden, Colleen Laurent, Nathan Williams for your participation. Thank you, you having done a terrific job of pitching yourself. For now, the audience, I hope to see you back next week at the webinar Wednesday. But for now, you can move to the lounge, and then you can go sit at a table. And if your question has been answered up till now, you can speak to the 5 experts and to myself directly. So with this, I'd like to wrap up this webinar, the open session. This will be recorded, or it has been recorded, made available for YouTube, and you will be sure that you can download the slides. And for now, I'd like to thank you all, the attendees, to listen, and the experts. And let's stay on. Let's go to our tables. Let's go to the lounge, and I'll see you there. Thank you, and see you in the lounge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.